what are the top three nonfiction books that influenced your life and your career the most?
Okay, well, let me not say books because let me talk in terms of people. Because some of the people that come to mind have
Mm,
multiple books and they have got, and it wasn't, well, I didn't learn from them just from the books they wrote. I learned from the seminars I attended with them, the workshops that I did with them, and so forth. So, I would tell you the first nonfiction book that has influenced my life and career has been the Holy Bible, number one by far. Um, I think we can, for me personally, I was raised in a religious cult. And I'll say cult, but I do believe they were true believers. I don't think that they were Christians. They believed in a very, very strict interpretation of the Bible where you do not store wealth on earth. You do not further your education. They didn't go to doctors or seek medical attention. They wouldn't even take an aspirin if they had a headache, that kind of thing. They believed in faith healing. So I don't agree with they were very rule based, if that makes sense, right? It was, so I kind of had this weird start with religion early on. But then I think as I've gotten older and running a business, and you have a family, you have kids. I think that putting my faith in Christ and God has given me a sense of calm and, has alleviated a lot of my anxiety. So that by far number one. Okay. Then if we, and that's in business too, by the way, guys, because you might say, well, that's not a business book. It is an everything book. Everything sits on top of that. Okay. So I just want to be very clear about that. The second person I think that had a tremendous impact on me was Tony Robbins. And I got exposed to Tony Robbins very, very early on. And in this true story. So, Tony Robbins is, guru. You see him on TV. He's got the big teeth. He's got like two hands that look like a bunch of bananas. His fingers are so big. He's kind of everyone making fun of him and whatnot, So, but I had just had gotten out of a failed relationship. I had just gotten out of a failed business because I was in business with the guy I was in the relationship with. I didn't own anything. We had gone over to England to start a marketing firm over there, failed miserably. So I came back. And I moved in with my dad for about a month while I just got my feet under me because I had sold everything and moved over to England. So I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything. I didn't furniture, nothing. So I came back and I was looking for a new, place to go to work. And that's how I ended up in Nashville. The marketing firm that we went to open a division for was based here in Nashville. So I decided to come back and join them. So I bought a car and everything I owned was in the backseat of that car and a couple boxes. Literally, that was all I had. And I was about to get on the interstate because I was driving from Philadelphia to Nashville, which is like a 12-14 hour drive. And there was a Barnes and Noble that was on the corner right before I got on the interstate. So I pulled in. I thought, well, let me get a book on tape or something to listen to on this long drive. And there was Tony Robbins' whole, what is it? The power, I forget something, whatever his core program is, right? I still have it somewhere behind me, right? Let me see. Tony's stuff is all over there. Um, anyway, so I get this and I listened to it, I think about 3 or 4 times. It was Personal Power. I listened to it 3, 4 times all the way from the drive from Philadelphia to Nashville. And it was the first time anybody ever taught me that how our beliefs and how our image of ourselves drives everything and outcomes in our life. So if you believe that you're not an educated, not very smart, but not very sophisticated, unlucky individual, which is what I believed about myself, you're not going to get very far. So for me, what Tony taught me and gave me was the power that I could choose my beliefs, right? And Ed Milet just said something, Rob. Do you remember what he said? Wayne Dwyer had said to him when he was on the beach. He said, Wayne had said to him, he asked him for some advice, and he said, "Well, never tie your persona, your personality to the results in
Yeah, to the
your
outcomes,
business. Was
right?
it
Yeah.
something like that? Do you
Yeah,
remember what it
yeah.
was?
Yeah, it was, I think he said that to the outcomes or the of whatever the particular thing is, but to your more to your intentions or where
Yes.
you know, your
To who you
potential
are
more,
as a
who you
person.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, because you might not hit your quota. You might not grow that year. You might have made a bad hire. Maybe you aren't best in class. That doesn't mean that you're a failed human being and a worthless person. That just means that, your intention was to do good things, but so if you tie your self-worth, I think is a good way of saying it, into the
Mhm.
results that you get in business, you're headed for disaster because, that's a rest because you're not going to hit every goal, right? But so that's kind of what Tony it gave me was like, hey, these beliefs that you have are driving your actions, and your actions are reinforcing your outcomes, and then your outcomes reinforce your beliefs. So that to me was huge. He also taught me a lot about influence and persuasion. I would say another person that like made a very big significant impact on my life was Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy was the person who taught me direct response marketing, because he was the only direct response marketer or only marketing person I knew that actually was very tied to sales. Like, in other words, he views the way I look at it, marketing is the beginning of the sales process. It's not something you do over here, a department, and then the sales team does what it does. Marketing is how you select a client base. Marketing is your unique selling proposition, your value proposition, which is strategically designed based on your customer, not based on you look around and go, well, what's unique about me? Because there's nothing unique. It has to be developed and strategically designed based on the customer you choose, and looking at numbers and understanding that. So Dan Kennedy also had a very, very big impact on me in understanding business. I would also say somebody that has, I mean, there's just so many people. That's had a impact on me would be Keith Cunningham. Keith wrote the book the Road Less Stupid, plus a couple others. Keith was actually the rich dad in the Rich Dad Poor Dad Robert Kiyosaki book, right? So Robert Kiyosaki came out later and said there was no rich dad, poor dad. I mean, it was all made up, right? But there was a guy that he modeled the rich dad on, and that was Keith Cunningham. So Keith also, just from the standpoint of how you look at business and your role as an entrepreneur. Jack Welch, somebody who has impacted me tremendously on leadership and understanding what it means to actually run and lead a group of people. One of my regrets is that I never met him in person. I kind of learned about Jack kind of later on in my career. I say learned about him, it's like started studying him late. I wish I had him at one of our events, because I think his philosophies and strategy around people and leadership, spot on. That has helped me tremendously.